Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Modern Life podcast, and welcome to the 74th annual Hunger Games! Ah, 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 ah. So, yes, we're going to be talking about the first Hunger Games book and movie. It's going to be myself and Tabby and Stacy, and then we're also having Brittany join us again. You met her on last week's podcast. We were so impressed with her Hunger Games knowledge that we just had to have her back. As always, you guys can find us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @ModernLifePod. And if you have any questions or suggestions or feedback or things you want to hear us talk about, go ahead and email us. Email address is modernlifepod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you guys. Without further ado, let's get into some Hunger Games. All right. We're here. I'm here with Stacy.
Hi.
I got Tabby.
What's up?
And Brittany's back.
Hey!
We tolerated Brittany last podcast, so we decided to bring her back.
It's pretty much how all
Her
my friendships
extensive
go.
Hunger Game knowledge made her indispensable for this episode. But as always, we want to do a little modern thoughts. Who wants to start? What's on your mind, people?
Okay. Mine is about a book named Momo by Michael Ende. He's the same guy who did The Neverending Story. Really famous German author. We've talked about him before on the podcast. It's a kid's book. And a lot of times when I reread books from my childhood, I have this moment of, oh, I didn't get that at the time, or these things make more sense to me. I think we all have that when we rewatch movies. I did not have that with this book because I think this author is able to convey so many complex and profound ideas in a way that is accessible to young readers. And honestly, this book, Momo, I put it up there with the greatest classic lit, Jane Austen.
Okay.
I think it's one of the best books ever written. It's a commentary about the treatment of children, consumerism, the way we are always stressed out and trying to fit more things into our lives. And it's just the way he understood children. It's just incredible to me. And it was really nice to revisit that.
That's not like a big book here, is it?
It's not. But
none
of
it's like big in Germany for
none
some
of his
reason.
books are.
Well,
Neverending Story
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, Neverending Story.
I've never met anyone who's actually read the book. Everyone's only familiar with
I didn't read the book.
Oh, okay. Everyone I know only watches the horrible movie, which he hated pretty much all of his movie adaptations.
That's so sad.
It's one with the big flying doggy.
Yeah.
I was quite a fan.
That's a weird one because it was like a Chinese style dragon. I don't know what made the film directors make it be like a furry doggy.
They thought that would
Oh, you mean it's like a dragon in the
book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that would, reach out to kids better. You know what they would love? A giant flying dog.
Yeah.
It's definitely more appealing.
Yeah.
More cute and cuddly.
All right, Brittany, what you got? What's your modern
Oh,
thought?
my modern thought is it's pretty weird, but it's an epiphany I came to last week. So Taylor Swift, I'm a huge fan of Taylor Swift. She has a song.
It's T-Swift.
T-Swizzle, T-Swift, all of it. Taylor Nation, all of it. She has a song called Endgame, which is also the name of the Avengers movie coming out next week. And the Avengers movie is coming out on Friday, and Taylor Swift is releasing her first single to her new album next Friday. So obviously Taylor Swift is going to be defeating Thanos. And I'm really excited about this.
Brittany with her.
She announced it with a diamond heart picture, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, Taylor has the 7th Infinity Stone." So that is my modern thought for the day.
Is that like an actual, we know for a fact it's a song for the movie, or this is all just
It's not a
fan
song
theory?
from the movie. It's just fan theory. It's just, everyone's really excited.
It's like too many coincidences.
Yeah,
someone was planning this
There's
out.
no way that this is a coincidence. So,
Either
yeah.
she's a genius,
She
or
is.
this is just a weird coincidence.
It's
Well, I'm
both.
sure it's kind of a marketing ploy. It's gotta be.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because Taylor Swift needs
Right?
help from the
Taylor
Avengers
Swift
to
needs
sell
help from
more
the-
albums.
Yeah, but
Hey,
why not
everyone
go
needs
for
help from the
it?
Avengers. But yeah.
So how is she gonna kill Thanos?
With her 7th Infinity Stone.
That's as far as the
The
theory
secret
goes.
7th Infinity
It's the
Stone.
one stone to rule them
Yeah.
all in the darkness, bind them.
It's the Taylor Nation Stone, which is taking
my
over the
God.
world.
She has a cameo in the movie. I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah, right?
You just never know.
I will, but in another way.
All right, I'll go next. Me.
Okay.
I read this article in the Atlantic yesterday all about dentistry, which I thought was really
God.
interesting because there's a lot of a
Sorry.
bunch of people that hate dentists
I
here.
have to get a crown replaced right now. There's like an infection in my mouth at the
Oh,
moment.
no.
I
I
wanted
wanted
everyone to know that.
$10,000 worth of work done in my mouth. It's kind of ridiculous.
My mom used to be a dental hygienist, so I spent a lot of time in dentist offices growing
Oh.
up.
Wow.
Look at me, finger on the pulse. But the whole the article documents this guy up in San Jose, California, who was this super shady dentist, and he would tell people they need all this work, like tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah,
When
I
they really
feel like I went to
didn't.
that guy.
Classic dentist.
No, I've had to have like my insurance company get involved and almost try to sue like a dentist's
That's
office
crazy.
before because they were like trying to screw us
That
over.
is awesome.
I like legitly, if the second I walk into a dentist office and the first thing they ask to do is do x-rays, and they want to do like a whole mouth x-rays, I'm like, I'm good, I'm leaving. And I like walk out the door.
Thanks for your services.
Because they're so expensive and they take up half of your deductible.
Yeah.
Especially if they can only do one tooth at a time. You know,
Yeah,
they
it's like,
don't have the
why-
rotating machine. They have
Oh,
like the little
what? Get
things
outta
they
here.
put
I'm
in
like,
your
just
mouth.
do what I came in for. I'm sore right here, fix it. Okay? If I come in for anything else, I'll let you know.
Sore subject.
Sorry, go on.
So it documents this guy, and this other dentist then buys the practice from him and ends up going through all
Oh,
these
big
patient
mistake.
files, and he's like, what the hell? Because first of all, he's only making about 20% a year of what this dentist advertised he was making with his practice. This guy was advertising that he was making almost $2 million a year in
Oh.
gross sales, but it's because he would have. So this new dentist, he starts going through the patient files, and he sees all these patients that have had like 15 crowns, like 20 root canals, like for one
my
person.
God.
Yeah, like insanity.
Obviously, he's not a good dentist if he has to
And
do
he
all
starts,
that.
well, he would just sell these things. Yeah, right. But
Can you imagine just drilling into somebody's like perfectly
yeah.
fine tooth for money? Like
there's all these, like,
it's like Little Shop of Horrors.
talks about all these people who spent like $70, $80, $100,000 like over a decade being with this dentist.
This
And
is
so this
sad.
new dentist, he goes through these files, he like starts sitting down with these patients one by one and like breaking the news of like, this guy scammed you, like you didn't need all this work, there's no evidence that you needed all this work. And then
That's nice of him.
he ends up sitting down with the dentist he bought it from, who's like doesn't take any responsibility, and he ends up, I don't remember if the new dentist or like the local dental association or whatever, like they ended up suing that guy, and some of the patients are suing that guy too.
Good.
But it's just this crazy story. But within all of that, the article then documents how a lot of the dentists like beliefs we have, like, okay, like one common thing is you should get your teeth cleaned twice a year for like normal dental hygiene.
Yeah.
And the article talks about how that's not rooted in any medical studies or like
Rooted.
there's no
Get it?
It talks about how dentistry is kind of like on the outside bubble of like the normal medical field. So
Yeah.
all this stuff in dentistry, hardly any of it is rooted in any hard science. It's just
Let's go back to the barber doing your teeth. Is that what you're saying?
no. I just think it's weird. We have all these things. That
There's
we
just nothing.
believe.
There's nobody like monitoring.
There's
them.
no
Yeah.
cold hard
And
science.
something that's really weird today that we do is like we put braces on kids when they're like in first grade, which
Yeah.
like your jaw hasn't even like
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're gonna have to
completely
re-get
grown yet.
braces. It
Yeah,
doesn't
you
even
have
make
to
any
get them
sense.
twice.
Yeah.
There's no reason to not to wait.
I
And these
got
things of
twice.
like you need to get all your wisdom teeth removed. Like there's no, like not everyone actually has to do that.
Yeah.
No, you only have to do it if there's like an issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Actually,
I found it
won't-
interesting.
They won't let you get braces if you have wisdom teeth.
Right.
They let me get braces.
Really?
I had wisdom teeth.
Most people I went to, they don't do it because wisdom teeth are the teeth
It'll
that
mess
move
it up
around
later,
so
yeah.
much
Yeah.
that they
Well, I
won't.
needed to get braces. I had a cleft palate, so like my teeth were like growing like through my fake palate. they were messed up really bad. So I needed them, but I also had to get my wisdom teeth removed too. My whole mouth is messed up, like all my teeth and everything.
You're a mess, Britt.
So
Yeah.
the dentist is evil, and I knew that all along. So
No,
thank you.
no. It was saying how dentists
Brush your
like
teeth,
that.
kids.
There's no evidence that that's like a widespread. You're gonna have a few bad apples here and there, but
Yes.
just this whole thing of a lot of it is just not rooted in cold hard science. I don't know. I didn't know that. I don't know. So
I love it, Stacey.
Yeah.
What you got?
Okay, so mine's a little bit lighter than some. Well, mine's more along the lines with Brittany. I want to talk about the fact that we're now redoing all these old movies, like
Oh, yeah.
particularly Child's Play. Like, I'm really upset about it.
What's
Yeah.
Child's Play?
Okay, so
Yeah, I don't know
it's
either.
Child's Play, the little doll that comes to life,
oh, I didn't know
and they're
that's what it's
redoing it,
called.
but they're
Yeah.
redoing it where it's completely CGI.
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of
Wait,
like the
what's
Lion
the
King.
difference?
Yeah, Lion King, Jungle Book.
What's the
Yeah.
difference between that and like Chucky?
That's the same thing.
Oh,
It's just that's
the
the
movie's
movie's
called
called Child's Play.
Got
Chucky
it.
is the doll.
Yeah.
I thought it was just
Who asked for
Chucky.
that?
Well, I think
asked
they're
for any
redoing
of it?
it. Well, they're redoing it because of what's it called? The movie that just came out, the
Halloween.
Halloween did so well. So now they're going to
Oh,
go
yeah.
back and recycle all these old movies.
Mm.
And I think that I might hit my limit when they redo Freddy Krueger, but because I just don't think you can ever remake that movie.
Or should.
Or should.
We have a podcast about it. Check it out.
I can't get you guys to watch that many horror movies.
No, we have a
Yeah.
Halloween podcast.
I love
Yeah.
I love
True.
horror movies.
I do too, but they're not fans.
No.
It's
Aw,
okay.
that's sad.
That's not. I mean, I watched
You
the
don't
new
enjoy-
Jordan Peele. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't completely dislike horror.
Yeah.
Okay, so I made them watch Crimson Peak, which isn't really a horror movie, but when the door opens by itself in the beginning, my brother goes, "Oh, I'd be jumping out that window. I am done. This movie is over."
That's amazing.
Yeah, if the door opens and there's something creepy at the end of the hallway, I'm not
Staying in the room.
walking towards.
That's the funnest part about horror movies is because the
Everyone's
stupid
so dumb.
decisions that they make.
Well, yeah, that I think that it was brilliant when they made fun of all of that in what's the
Scary
Screams, all the
Oh,
Scream
the
movies
Screams.
where they like just
Right.
blast like all the stupidity.
Yeah, the
brilliant.
Lion King movie, I really don't get because it's still animated.
I mean, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what
Yeah,
I'm.
there's
I
no-
don't get it.
Yeah.
There's no little Mowgli running around.
And
There's-
same with Jungle
There's no
Book.
like
Yeah,
actual
yes.
actors, right?
And I was really disappointed with Jungle Book because they didn't even sing in it. And I was like, what is even the point of this movie? There's no reason for it.
I like the Jungle Book, but Mulan's gonna be the same way too, where there's not gonna be any
I didn't
singing.
think. I thought Beauty and the Beast wasn't very good. The new one, like it's.
Oh, whoa,
sorry.
whoa,
No.
whoa.
I'm sorry.
You might have chosen some fighting words over
Sorry.
here because we're pretty
Well, that's,
passionate about
that's it
Beauty
for
and the Beast
podcast,
one.
guys.
Like the Cinderella one, I really
Oh, no, that one was
wasn't about
garbage.
it. All
Yeah.
the
Oh
ones,
no, the Cinderella one was
all the
horrible.
ones that they've done, I haven't really been like out of my seat for.
Well,
I
I
really
don't-
like the Beauty and the Beast one. I'm not.
I love
I'm like
I love
debating
Emma
whether I'm gonna
Watson.
like the Aladdin one.
I'm
I'm kind of eerie about it.
I'm
Okay.
like I didn't go see Dumbo. I'm probably not going to see it because I'm not excited for it. Every time they announce it,
Oh,
I
it's
just
like everyone, I know, like Stacey Tabber and I, we just don't get the Lion King thing because it's like
No, it doesn't make
it's
sense.
live action, but there's no the whole thing. There's no
doesn't make sense.
like actor or anything. How
I'm
is it
not
live action?
crazy about CGI. Like I get it that it's necessary to add to certain movies, but if I can see that it's the whole movie's CGI, it's like why am I not watching an
Then
animation
I would just
movie?
watch Pixar.
Yeah, like I
Right.
like the art better in that anyway, and
Yeah.
at least
Just
I
watch
can
the
appreciate the
original.
the artistic value of it. So to me, it's like it's just
Yeah, I
it's
don't know.
stupid.
It's weird.
it just doesn't make sense.
So that was my modern thought.
All right.
All
Let's
right,
get into the real topic.
All right.
it's gonna do the opening.
Oh, I like it.
That used to be my ringtone for the longest.
That was
Really?
everybody's ringtone.
That's true. Or like text message alert.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tabby, start us off, man.
Tell us what we're
Games.
doing. Give us a synopsis.
Oh, Hunger Games is a novel.
The story of a young girl who becomes a woman.
It's like the fun music.
Oh.
We're mainly going to be talking about the first one because otherwise it's going to be a 5-hour
We're gonna be here all day.
podcast.
Yeah.
Hunger Games is a dystopian story about the US and its 12 states or districts and the children that are reaped from that to fight to the death. Ha! That's it.
So is it? I didn't actually know it. Does it? Like in the book, does it explicitly say it takes place in the
does.
U.S.?
Yeah, it's
because they
okay.
talk
Yeah.
about in school, the little that they learn is like, we used to be called the United States, but that was before
okay.
the war, and now we're the
Because does it say anything in the movie? Like I don't
It does
remember,
not,
right?
no.
Okay.
No. That was in the
I
book.
didn't think so. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had I read the book for this. Brittany and Stacy read them a while ago.
Books.
Sam doesn't
Who
read.
needs them?
And I remember when this movie came out, the thing I was struggling with was, is this a realistic scenario? Did I believe this as a, as a sci-fi piece
Yeah.
of work? Because Margaret Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, she has this really great quote about sci-fi where it has to be rooted in reality. Otherwise, it's just going to
Not
become
cool.
like weird technology and spaceships. And
Yeah. I
and you
that.
see that with Star Trek. The things they talk about are, morals and
Right.
ethics and racism and all these really important things. And like the things in The Handmaid's Tale, each of those items have happened in our history to women, but not in this combination that she created for her book.
Okay.
So you're talking about like rooting real themes in real life, like situations
yes.
into the fantasy
and I
world.
actually believe once I read the book, everything made a little bit more sense to me. Or maybe just didn't have the time to expand
sure.
on that. Because I didn't believe that those people in the districts were dehumanized enough for the Capitol to do all these things to them.
Yeah.
But the book explains that a lot, like how they don't have any education, which is really a really important tactic in dehumanization, how they're all slave labor for the Capitol. The separation also that the Capitol doesn't associate with them unless they're victors.
Yeah,
and the districts
exactly.
don't associate with each other. Thereby you can't form relationships and see them as people. I thought that made more sense to me in the book as to how this scenario could happen.
Right.
And then the other piece that my brother and I were talking about the other day that is always in the back of my mind is there is a huge history of us torturing each other for
Yeah, I mean,
entertainment.
like, humans are garbage.
But
I
then
can see it
also-
happening.
So can see it happening.
But then also, like, our minds are so fragile, even watching something terrible happen can traumatize us for life, and I don't know how to reconcile that. Like, I mean, we're complex human beings, but how can we be okay with that? And then, but also be really affected by things and
I
emotions
think it's
around
just
us.
by what you're taught. Like if you're taught this is something that's supposed to shock you, this is something that's supposed to be horrible, then it's gonna shock you and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But if you're taught no, this is normal, and you are taught this, it's normalized, then it becomes normal to the child growing
I
up.
think also it has a lot to do with what you said in yourself, education,
That
history,
too, yeah.
learning about your history, learning about other things so you can see the effect, the cause and the effect versus just seeing the cause. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're constantly in society just looking at things and not seeing how the after effect is and you don't see how it affects people in general, I think you don't learn any lessons from it.
Yeah.
So it's just norm. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was trying to look up articles by psychologists on torture as entertainment and what that does to us and why we like it so much. And all I found was on one article by a woman who's like, we have all this history about it, yet nobody's exploring this or talking about it. All anybody talks about is how it affects us negatively, yet there must be something in our brains that's okay with it.
Yeah.
The only thing in the book that was so over the top for me, because it was so gruesome, I didn't see how anyone would just be glued to the screen for it in the Capitol, is the very end where Cato is eaten by dogs for an entire night. And I'm like, wouldn't they just eat his face off and then we'd be done with it? It was a little too much shock value. And they can't put that in the movie because the movies are for younger kids. But that was the one thing where I was like, I can't follow you there. That people would...
Well,
it was just so over the top.
It's those moments where it helps fuel the hatred in the districts for each other.
Yeah.
So it's there for you to fear
It's
the
there
Capitol.
for District 12 who hates them.
Yeah, they need to hate each other because if not, they won't band together. That's why you have such a hard time in like the second one getting them to like unite because they all hate each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why her role is so important in the movie, is because she doesn't look at people throughout as districts. She looks at people as people, and her bonding with Rue, even though they're from different districts, you know, things like that, or like Kato not killing her because she helped Rue, like
Thresh.
Thresh, yeah, my bad. I think that's essential in how you can start seeing them unify, and her constantly like being like,
and that's why the Capitol hated her so much, was because they were like, oh, she's not.
I just didn't see Capitol families watching this with their kids.
And maybe it wasn't the Capitol family, maybe it was the other districts, but
yeah, but they're all supposed to be watching this for entertainment. And also, why wouldn't the dogs just eat that human being? Like, why did it take all night?
Well, it said that it was because he was wearing armor that
but
was,
not on his face. That was the one not on his face, and I don't. It was just a little too over the top.
Yeah,
like, but that's the only place.
I don't know, but if you grow up and you don't even see these, because ultimately you don't even see, if you're in the Capitol, these people in the districts, you don't really see them as like human beings, right? So if that's kind of how you grow up, maybe it's just normal to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the perfect example of that is when they're like making them over, and you hear how they talk, like how they're whispering about her, like.
And she has no agency. Like, they're gonna do like plastic surgery on her, and Cinna's the one who like stops them from doing it, and they weren't gonna ask her.
That's what I'm saying. Like, well, just they're discussed like, and how they were just like, oh, we're gonna have to wash her down again. You know what I'm saying? Like, just the way that they talk about her is like not even a person. Like she's
which was more in the book. That
they really go into the
sure,
detail in that, but yeah. So I don't know. I think it's just an inhumanization.
No, but like like people still watch football, right? That's just people smashing into each other on a certain extent.
MMA?
Well, a certain extent, that's people hurting each other.
Well, MMA or any fight.
Oh, yeah, WWE.
Yeah,
it goes back to like gladiators. Like,
well, actually, the gladiators is a lot where that whole, actually it kind of stems from like a Greek.
Yeah, she was really into Greek mythology.
Okay. Yeah, she was huge, and so it was like based on Theseus and the Minotaur, I think it was.
But everybody brings up the Colosseum in relationship to this, and I actually Googled it, and people fighting in the Colosseum were either slaves or criminals, and again, people that we have deemed as not human.
Yeah.
So, I think that needs to happen for us in order to,
Yeah. Right. Get that. For us to... quote unquote understand why it's happening.
No, but when we were talking about that the other day, so I brought up that book that we're going to do a podcast on eventually, right? I think it was called Ordinary Men, and it's about this Polish police battalion in World War II that was just these regular businessmen and normal cops and just these regular guys that were turned into like complete monsters and would do these atrocious things to especially Jewish people, but like, Russians and wherever they would have to go. And there's so far, I'm only like a few chapters in, but there is this weird dynamic. Like it talks about even the SS police, the leaders that would lead these police groups, even they, like, there's memos from like German, I guess, psychiatrists. They were, just evaluating these guys psychologically and saying there's like even though they're these monsters, like they still have, there's a psychological impact of them doing all these things, right? So there's like such a weird dynamic.
Well, I mean, just look at our own American history. Like, dude, do you know how horrible California, like how we got rid of the Indians in California? Like, it just basically went in and we're like, the United States government paid for scalps. Like that's how they literally were like, however many scalps you can collect, like I'm gonna pay you money for them.
Yeah, it's just basically who, like, those people view as human and who they don't view as human.
Right.
Yeah, and it's that the inferiority versus the like if you think you're above someone and they're inferior to you, then they're not human.
Yeah,
and that goes on it's still going on in society today.
And I'm not trying to put all this on the book. These are really like broader questions that I have in general. Sure. I'm not holding the book responsible for like answering them all.
Where are the answers?
Something that,
but the fact that the book makes you think about that is what's important about the book.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
The fact that it takes those real themes and things that you have to deal with in reality and put it in a fantasy world so a child can, like my daughter who's 11 can sit there and watch it and be like, this is horrible, and take something from it instead of having to read about the the crazy shit I had to read about in my Native American history class. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's taking that and being able to teach it to a kid, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
So the book is written in first person, and she did that really well.
Yes.
Especially the voice of Katniss, who's a very specific character. It's a very restrictive way of writing, because you can only tell the reader about things that character would notice or find worthy of, thinking about. This is one of the best ways I've seen it done.
They did it, and that's also why taking it and adapting it to a film was so hard to grasp all the points.
I think so too.
Because of the fact that so much of it was in the book was just her talking to herself, and like her thinking, and like her, watching situations
and the way she saw things.
Yeah, so I think that though we don't though it's not a perfect adaptation, I think they did a great job for what they had.
And you also have the freedom then in the movie to have those scenes with Snow and Haymitch and like all these things you can't put in the book because she wasn't there or didn't experience it. The first chapter in this book is absolutely brilliant. Such a great piece of work, because we don't find out the name of the main character Katniss until about the middle of the chapter. The first name we find out is Primrose. Yeah. And that name gets repeated. Instead of writing, at the end of the chapter, I went back and reread it. Instead of writing my sister, she always puts her name in. Yeah. So that the reader, it's like she's drilling it into your head who Primrose is. Yeah. And then the chapter ends with repeatedly the lines, "Please don't be me, please don't be me." And then the next line is, "It wasn't me." And then the Effie says, "Primrose Everdeen." Yeah. So it's so great. Yeah. I love it. God, you're choking up. So good. It's just such a brilliant piece of writing, because if she had kept saying like my sister and then the last line is Primrose Everdeen, you'd be like, who? Like, who is that?
Yeah, wait a second. Let me go back and
but because of the way she set it up, like the chapters usually have like this really like forceful impact on you. Yeah. That's why I can't like put it down, because every chapter is like a cliffhanger where the last line is like something insane.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the problem. I was in high school, and I finished the series very quickly. Yeah. Because I was like, well, I have to stay up all night and just read it, because every chapter is like leaving
rapid fire.
Something that you like can't not know.
Yeah.
Next thing I've written down is the capital accent, which Elizabeth Banks is the only one doing it. And I love her. He really does his own thing. Okay, I really need to talk. It's some
sort of accent, right?
Yeah, I feel like Elizabeth Banks is really the only one like doubling down on it.
Well, she's a phenomenal actress. Yeah.
Like, and a comedic actress too.
Yeah, well, she based her whole role off of the Philadelphia Story. Like, that's how she played it.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, she played it off the Rosalind Russell character in Philadelphia Story.
Was that Katharine Hepburn? Isn't that right?
That was Katharine Hepburn. And so she like looked at that and how her aristocratic, like how you basically like have this person that you don't like when you first meet them, and then slowly you see their character develop, and you realize that they're not as evil as they come across at first, and it's more of just like a lack of knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. She's my favorite character. Yeah. Like in the movies.
In the movies, she does a phenomenal. Yeah. She's actually like not as she's so much more prevalent in the movies than she is in the book, because there's she wasn't even part of the
13. Yeah. No, they just took that character and they went all the way.
Well, because everybody loved her character.
Yeah, she was definitely more memorable, and she stood out more.
And the same thing about Stanley Tucci's character. Tucci. It just says, like, the interviewer. There's barely any description. And to take just this blank slate. Yeah. And either the writers or the actor, and what they did with that, with the white teeth and the wig and, like, the laughing. And you just can't get enough of him. And I think that's why they put him in the later movies, too. Like, he's suddenly, like, the news reporter. He's, like, everybody suddenly by the end of the movie.
He's like the Ryan Seacrest.
Well, don't they combine, like, two characters in the book to make him? Because there was, like, the auditor...
They have a sidekick there sometimes, a guy with the, like, curly...
Yeah, but I feel like there was, like, in the book, it was, like, there was two... There was, like, two... There was Caesar Flickerman, and then there was someone else, too. I don't remember the name. It was, like...
Yeah, they have them at the, like, when the tributes come out in the chariots. Like, they have them there, and then they go, oh, they're my favorites. And then the other guy's like, oh, yeah. I don't remember that guy's name, though.
Yeah.
It's Stanley Tucci's on screen.
Exactly.
I don't know. To me, the reporter Tucci plays is like, that's just the first thing I always think of.
Yeah,
With
with the
Hunger
Hunger
Games.
Games,
Always.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just the most,
he-
that like laugh he does is just like the most memorable thing to me.
God, he's
I mean,
so great.
even like Stephen Colbert did a version of like,
Yeah.
remember during the last election on his like,
Oh,
on the
that was
Tonight
so
Show,
funny.
like, which, I mean, just, if he's doing that on the Tonight Show, which is like the biggest late night
Yeah.
show, like, it's just obviously everyone
Obviously it
immediately
stinks.
knows who that is.
Well,
right?
I feel like Stanley Tucci always brings like
brings the heat.
He always brings like a uniqueness to his role, and you just like you got to watch him. He's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Like one of my other favorite roles he's in is like that. You know, the one with
Oh yeah, that
Emma
one.
Stone?
yeah,
Where he's the dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy A.
I know you would know.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
read my mind.
It's a great
Easy A.
movie.
No, he's the best.
Yeah. So
The next thing I've written down is, let's talk about Peter. Because I thought
Pita
he
bread.
was Peter Bread. He
See,
was
we
the
have
mo-
very different opinions about this.
I thought he was the most interesting and complex character in the book, but I think that's also because you get everything through Katniss's perspective, and she legit
Yeah.
doesn't know, is he on my side? Is he
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
careers? Does he
Yeah.
love me? Is he just playing like a trick?
Yeah.
And
or
then-
is it just, for the game?
Yeah, and then by the end you find out that he really
He really
loves
did
her,
he really
but
did love
Katniss doesn't get it. And to put that in a book that's written in first person, and to put in a line for the audience
it's
to
hard.
get and
It's
not
hard,
the character
yeah.
to get, I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that they play up in the movie like the love story a little
Oh,
bit
yeah,
and like
way
kind of
more.
make him a little bit more they don't really play on how manipulative he can be. You know what I mean? Not manipulative, but
They also don't have him in there like stabbing somebody to death, like with
Yeah.
the careers. Like
Yeah.
they really made him just like white
They
bread.
made him more lovable. They made
Yeah.
him more like sweet and like, oh, like
Yeah.
that's what they wanted. They wanted Gale to be like the like tough, like hardened one, and Peter to be like the sweet, innocent one. And I think that's what because they wanted it to be a really like Team Peter or Team Gale thing.
yeah, I mean,
And
I
that's
definitely
why.
think that Pete is supposed to represent like Primrose is supposed to represent like pure goodness and
Innocence,
innocence,
yeah.
and then right down from that is Peter.
Yeah, he's
And
supposed to
I
be,
mean,
yeah.
you definitely want to see
He's
him
the good
because like
guy.
he's
Yeah.
the good guy that you like want it because they need that for like the character development
Right.
in her to like lose the goodness a little bit toward the end and then try and bring it back. But I feel that the guy did a really well for
Yeah,
what he
I-
had.
for
You know what I
sure.
mean?
I
Like
think he
I
did
like
too.
I
Oh, yeah.
genuinely love Josh
Me too. I
Hutcherson. Like I
love
think that
Josh
he does
Hutcherson.
a great job, but I definitely think the character development in the book versus in the movie is a
Yeah.
little different.
It was just like differently done too. I think that they just I like when I was reading the series, there was never a time where I was like, oh man, like is she gonna pick Peter or Gale? Like I was never like worried about that.
No, you
I
like
was never
always. It
thinking
was
that.
always like
I was just like, what's happening next?
Yeah.
And then when the movies came out, that's very what they were trying to play off of. Like, who is she gonna pick?
That's
Like, who's
true.
she gonna fall in
It
love
was
with?
more about the
Yeah. And I think that that's what they were going for. And I honestly just think the main reason they were going for that was because that's why Twilight was so
yeah,
successful.
exactly.
And
That's
they
what I was
wanted
thinking.
That they wanted to try to like mirror that because they thought they would get more.
Well, I didn't, because I only watched the movies first. By the end of the first movie, I legitimately didn't know if she loved Peter
Mm-hmm.
or if
Yeah.
it was for the show. or whatever.
Honestly, even at the end of the books, I didn't know if she genuinely loved Peter.
Yeah, no,
Well,
I
that's
kind of
what
feel
I'm
the same
stuck
way.
with.
You got a very different
Yeah.
viewpoint, I feel like, from the books. Like when you read the books, you were like, she doesn't love Peeta, and in my mind, it was always just like she doesn't want to
confused.
entertain that idea
Yeah.
in any way.
She-
So like even though it was there in the back of her head by the way she would like occasionally like think about him, it was always like I'm not gonna look at it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there was much
With
more of a
both of them.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was much more of a relationship with
She wanted Gale more than I think she wanted Gale more than she wanted Peeta.
I get like not that she wanted Gale more, but that she had more history
Yeah,
with Gale.
exactly.
So there was more of like an understanding of who he was, and like at that time in her life, that's what she needed. And
Yeah.
then as she grew, like they're too similar.
They're too similar.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
they
for
were the
sure.
same person, so they wouldn't. You know, she needed somebody to calm her down and like give her like have more of an optimistic view. Which
Yeah.
and that was the other thing about like something that I thought was weird in the book versus the movie is like Katniss was portrayed. In the book, I feel like she had much more of a like almost negative view of life And
Yeah.
I don't
Like a
see that
survivor.
as much in the
Yeah.
book, in the movie, as I
Yeah.
did in the book.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, it was much more, she was always more hardened.
Yeah.
It was always like, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And in the movie, it was always like portrayed as more of a
colorful.
yeah,
and
like,
lighthearted.
and then like, oh, but I feel bad about it. And like in the movie, in the books,
Yeah.
I feel like she never felt bad
Yeah,
about
she went
any
in
of it.
there
She was
I'm
like,
gonna
and
kill
she was always,
Peter right away.
yeah,
Like,
she was always worried about like, in the book, she was never worried about, she was like always thinking like, oh, they're going to find out who I really am. Like
Yeah.
there's always this layer of like, people see me this way, but I know the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's interesting because they never got that from the movies.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they wanted to portray that. I don't think it was the actress's
Yeah.
fault because I think J-Lo did great, but
J-Lo?
Jennifer Lawrence.
J-Lo.
It's J-Law. J-Lo is a different
Oh,
person.
my
you know?
bad. Look at these damn nicknames.
Are we buying that the Peter actor is supposed to be able to like throw a car over his head?
No,
Yep.
I
Like,
don't. I'm
Yeah,
See-
he's a
see,
little
you
bit,
bother
no
that-
pun
that-
intended, doughy looking.
How long have you been thinking about that?
A couple minutes.
yeah, I wouldn't want anybody else in that role now because he does great in that.
No, he's fantastic.
but he's not the stocky guy described.
No.
Well, you know that
I don't get
originally
it.
they had interviewed a bunch of people, and actually the actor that played Kato was actually up for that role.
Oh, I can
too.
see that.
Okay.
And that's, I think, when they were looking for more of a physical attributes, that's what they were going for. But then it was
He was the better actor.
No, it was the
The
glow
yeah.
and like
And
the
vibe you
golden
get
boy,
from
like
Josh- yeah.
like you look at him and
Josh
you like,
Hutcherson, you're like, oh, he's so sweet.
Oh, no.
yeah,
for
like
sure.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's an easy capturable, like
Yeah.
to be able to do both, like be able to have some kind of duality to your nature where you can be looked at like as such a golden boy, but then at the same time turn around and
Throw a
like.
car over your
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't know, like there was,
That's
the,
hard
and
to
I think that I think he grasped it, and to me the physical like not
It never
being as
bothered me
stocky,
in the movie,
it never
yeah.
really bothered me because I have seen like really small people
It also
be
said he
hugely
was
strong.
It also said that he was short.
No,
in the
no,
book,
yeah.
So.
It's nothing to do with his like height. I don't know. He just doesn't seem all that stocky. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
pictured somebody different.
Well, I
don't
mean,
know.
I think they're
But
better.
they're also kids. Like you're jealous. of them.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
guess so.
Like the children.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
true.
and that I think is that's
Yeah.
what sold it for me. It's
So
like
is-
you're
is
not going to
PETA,
picture.
like borderline superhero if he has that much strength and he's basically like an enslaved human being. Like, is he
No.
getting
He's
that
a
much
baker.
protein to build all these?
Well, that's the whole.
Eat
That's why I think
bread
you're
all
like
day.
that. He's supposed to be like well fed and like whatever,
he's
but
a
he's
baker.
not supposed to
Just
be.
eating bread.
This idea that you guys think that he's supposed to be like this. Like
Yeah.
he's a kid. He's 16. You know what I mean? He's not.
Yeah.
How did he
huge.
get so strong? That's what
lifting
I
the
wanna know.
flour,
Lifting
babe?
flour.
100-pound bags of
Hey,
flour.
when I was a kid, I lifted like 50 pounds, 100 pounds horse feed.
Yeah, and look how she's
look
like
how scrawny
tiny.
I am. So it can happen, okay?
But yeah, he just eats like stale bread from the shop, and that's all they
I
get.
soak it in water.
No, that's what
soften it up a
Katniss
little bit.
ate. I don't think he ate.
No,
Oh, no,
they
he-
never ate. They never.
They never ate the
He
full
ate
bread. They
some
like definitely
salad.
got
Yeah.
like the crappy.
Yeah,
His parents were not like super nice
nice.
to him.
the
His
dad
parents were not
was.
nice.
The dad was nice. Okay.
Is this bread any
He
good?
really
Has
didn't
anyone
share any of the
tried Peter's
strawberries.
Let's
bread?
get this bread.
The fresh bread.
It is because actually a lot of the descriptions in the book are about food, are about the different, like each district makes a different bread.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
the
there's a
fishing
lot.
district
Oh, really?
has
Yeah, there's a
seaweed
lot
in
that goes
it,
into
the-
it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, like, there was
wow.
actually a part in this book where the bread played like was it this one or the next one? It might have been the next
Yeah,
one.
because
where
she
they talk
gets-
about like the
She gets a package of bread
Yes,
from
that was in the first
from the
one.
umbrella, and she opens it up, and Peter knows what all the breads are, and she knows, and that's how she recognizes it's from District 8, and even though 11, sorry, District 11, even
and that's
though
how she knows that they were the ones that gave her like the life-saving
Yes.
bread.
Yeah.
And
because
so
she tried to save
saved
Rue,
Rue.
so the whole
Yeah.
district
like banded together and sent
to
her
get
something.
her that one loaf of bread, which was already an insane amount of money
Yeah,
for
for,
them.
Yeah.
like, for them to spend on her.
Right.
Which is it like really it I think that was something they should have used. I kind of feel like they
Yeah,
should
that
have
was
played
like-
that up a little
yeah.
bit more in the movie because I feel like that was like showed how the districts were coming behind her a little bit,
Yeah.
which I feel like you were like
Because
you
it
didn't
never
grasp
happened
that as
before.
much. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you didn't
Um,
grasp that as much from the movies.
They normalized it. and
I'm
it's-
gonna. Yes, you're right, but also because it's not first person. we get to have that scene of Rue's dad in the crowd and they start a riot after she dies.
That's true too.
So they tried to do it with that, and then in the second movie on the platform, he's not there, so you know he's dead. Like you know he died in the riot. So they tried to.
Yeah, I'm not saying they didn't try. I'm just saying I think that the bread, like the signification of the bread, would have been interesting.
And just food in general, because they were starving all the time.
Yeah.
So Katniss was always describing food because she was like, "Oh, I've never."
They really didn't play up the food very much, and I feel like it was an important aspect of the movie.
Well, I also think that no one really believed that any of them were starving.
No, they.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
Like,
it wouldn't
none
have
of
made as
them
much
really-
sense. Yeah, because they'd be like, why does she care about food so much? Because no one really was thinking like, oh, they're starving.
Well, that was part of the reason that, like you said, that the movie was hard to believe at first because you didn't understand how they could get to the point of deprivation of wanting to do something like this.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was part where they kind of like PG'd it for like kids.
Yeah.
They didn't want to like show the horrifications.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they kind of lost that a little bit.
oh, also, there's a really strange montage in the very beginning of the movie where it shows what life is like, and it shows people in their broken down huts and miners going to work. And it's all filmed in the craziest shaky cam.
Well,
And
you know
then
who did
we
it,
just
right?
Go back to normal.
Oh, wait, actually, no, that wasn't. Steven Soderbergh was the second director in this, and he did a lot of that kind of footage. So, like all the District 11 footage and stuff like that was all done by Soderbergh. Yeah. So the original director was Gary Ross, and then Steven Soderbergh did the rest.
I just hate shaky cam. It needs to die.
It's definitely
Camera's
his
too
style.
heavy.
I'm on crack cocaine.
But I think that's why you get two different aspects of
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie, like a two different film, because like the fight scenes are always done. I mean, the war scenes are always done by him, and then so it was like,
Interesting.
Makes sense.
Oh, something that made no sense to me in the book is they save all the arenas every year instead of reusing it. And then it's like tourist things where people go. I'm like, you have that much room that you have saved 74 arenas for people that like, and you have like organized transportation in like tour buses to each of those. That I didn't believe that in any way, shape, or form.
yeah. But you also got to think about from a district point of view how wasteful they are. I mean, they literally have something for you to like
Throw up
your food when
because-
the districts are starving.
Yeah.
It
Like
just
there's
seems
just like there's a warped view of like just stupidity of
Yeah.
like, and yet that's hard to comprehend when you don't feel like when you're not a wasteful
Also,
person.
when you're from California, where there's no space.
Yeah.
And
It's
West
a different
Virginia,
kind of perspective.
Yeah, like where I'm from, there's like just a ton of nothing. There would totally be room to do that there.
Right, but if they don't,
100%.
but if they don't have any people anywhere because there's so much space, then who are all these people going to these 74 arenas, like taking their kids on?
They have annual passes. This is their Disneyland.
One pass gets you into all the arenas.
Make sure you
This
check
Six
out your
Flags
lockout dates.
commercial right now. Plus the water park. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
it's in the
a bit
book,
much.
yeah.
Could all the arenas be right next to each other?
I'm
But
sure
they're
Oh.
huge.
close.
They're like huge.
But I'm sure they're close. Like I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not far
They're
from
not
each other
like
because they're just
that
like
huge,
huge,
grown.
so I feel like they were not. It's like probably the size of a football stadium.
That's what I'm.
Yeah,
that's
that's
how I
it.
pictured it.
That's
it was
how I
probably
pictured
the size
it.
of a football field.
Something I thought was interesting is at the end of this book, Peter loses his leg,
And they don't do that in the movie.
They
at
bring
all.
it up again in the next book, and then the third book, it's like
Well, because
nobody
he has
talks
like
about it.
he has like a doesn't he have like a
printed that shit.
yeah
Yeah, but he walks with like a limp and stuff, but then suddenly in the third
Yeah, it's a
book,
bigger
it's
deal in
gone.
the book.
Like
Wow.
nobody talks about it.
Well, I didn't even get the feeling that he lost his leg in the
I didn't
movie.
even
I
thought
don't
he
think
did
that they
lose
tell
his
that. I
leg.
think they just say he injures his foot.
Yeah,
and
I thought
that's
it was
it.
like that he injured.
And then in the book, he like legitly lost his
whole
leg.
leg.
Yeah, and it's like they don't.
And he's like it's a big thing throughout the entire rest of the series.
But what does
Yeah.
he
Except
get,
for
like
the
a
third book.
plastic leg? Like what does he get?
Yeah,
Yeah, they give him a prostate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
but it was metal,
Prosthetic.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like one of those like astronaut legs.
they just got more developed
It's
through the third book, and by the third book, it was like he was so used to having it, he didn't even notice.
Maybe, yeah. He like figured it out.
Well, it doesn't make sense. He would. Because this is what year does this take place in?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
It doesn't
Future.
We think at some point in the future, like, yeah, eventually.
I mean, they have healing salve that like you basically spread on your thing, and it like you're better.
He would have like an advanced replacement leg, so once he gets used to it, I don't think he'd be limping anymore.
That they could just like you could just grow a limb back yet.
Yeah, I thought about that. I'm like, wait, what's going on with that?
Fact check. But something I really appreciate about that is in the book, Katniss ties a tourniquet, and she's very hesitant to do this. And that's also another reason why Peter loses his leg, because they can't do anything else about it. And I see this in a lot of shows where somebody will just tie a tourniquet and everything's fine. So here's your real life advice. Because the blood is like bound together, it starts to accumulate and you start to get poisoning in there. Whenever, if you're in a crazy situation where you have to tourniquet somebody, you have to timestamp it. Like, get a Sharpie right on their skin. The medics need to know how long that has been bound together.
Where are they supposed to get a Sharpie
once you release it, all that bad blood will just, like, it's just really, really bad. And tourniquets are, like, a big deal. And I think that I appreciate in this book that they treat it like a big deal, because first aid is important, and, you know, we don't get a lot of accuracy in movies with that, so.
It's true.
But there you go.
Well, she draws a lot of her experience from, like, her father's, like, war experiences during, I think it was Vietnam War. You guys hear that?
Mm-mm.
Wait, so her dad was in
her
Vietnam?
dad was in one of the wars. I don't know. I don't remember which one.
Well, then it wouldn't be that.
No, Suzanne Collins, the author.
The author.
Oh,
the author. No. The author. So she draws a lot of her facts from like foraging and like all of that stuff from him, because they were alive in the Great Depression, and then he had like a lot of war stories that he would tell her. So that's where she draws a lot of this information
Makes
from.
Sense. I did not know that. That's very interesting.
Fun fact. What else you got, Tabby?
I don't know.
You got all the questions over there.
Oh, I just really love the music. James Newton Howard has done a lot of work.
Good stuff.
I'm surprised that you have not brought up the costumes. Like, with your love for costumes, like, I was waiting for it.
I think the second movie does the best job of the costumes, where they really have the budget. That butterfly dress, I think it's a Valentino dress that Effie wears.
Oh yeah, they like
has,
literally
the
make that
everywhere.
from paper.
I don't know that it's paper. The dress is an actual dress that you can. Most of the dresses are just haute couture that you could buy. Mm-hmm. And I think the budget went up a lot in the second movie. Oh, yeah. That's why the costumes are just so insane. Those eyelashes that Effie wears, they are paper eyelashes. They cost $20 each. They have the like different shapes on it.
Yeah.
And they're one-time use because they're made out of paper.
Right.
So you can buy them, but you know, it's really like
for Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, in the first movie, they used 1,800 costumes that were constructed handmade on the set. That's and there was 450 wigs and 35 full-time makeup artists that were like on set at all times, which I thought was crazy.
You looked all that up.
I did. I'm smart.
Do we think? Okay, so this is what young adult genre technically, right?
Yeah.
Is this the height of the young adult genre? Because
I don't read a lot of young adults, so I can't.
I'm saying, like,
I do.
Even just as far as movies are concerned, right? Because I feel like we started in 2001 with Harry Potter, and then I feel like Hunger Games. When's the last Hunger Games movie? Like 2016, 15,
yeah, something
like that. Are you asking if we're gonna get more? Because like
I don't.
Well, they have to get a next series. Like they just need to find.
But I feel like we had this run of all these different.
Yeah.
Well, they had this run
genre, and I feel like now we're on to the next thing, like the superheroes.
Well, they tried to do Divergent, but it was bad.
Right.
But they just did a really bad version of it.
Yeah.
But I think that was their fault. I mean, I read, like, I'm in the process of reading the Divergent books, and I've seen all the movies because my daughter loves them, and like the books are so much better than the movie. Well, I had no idea until I read the books, like how bad they changed so much of the story.
That, and then also just like the actors aren't. I don't really like any of the actors. I really don't like Shailene Woodley. I don't like her acting style at all. Like, sorry, but it's just the truth. And that kind of just ruined it for me because she's just so like. No expression.
They've tried they've like thrown other stuff at it, and I just don't think anything's sticking.
Yeah.
I think we've just
Well, I
kind
think
of
that
moved
there's-
on with the genre. Like,
no, I don't feel
we
like
had,
we're
like, a
done. I
lot
just
of
feel
it.
like it's just
You have
calming
to wait
down,
for
and we're
that.
gonna come back up.
I mean, you have to get something else that's really good, and it has to just be done right. That's the problem. I think that every movie, like also Maze Runner, they tried that.
I like the Maze Runner.
I thought
see
it was
the
all
first
right.
one. I liked that.
Yeah,
movie.
I thought it was fine, but
That's what I'm saying, but I feel like we go through like different genres that we collectively all.
Well, I think that
watch
what
in
happens
theaters.
is that we like get one or two really good, and then they make a
Exactly.
saturation of them and try and make
Right.
every single one, and then people are like, no, these are all stupid now,
Yeah.
and then they wait, and then another good one comes out, and then they do that.
What they try to do is they try to just copy what.
Yeah, what's
all
working.
Those movies just try
Like
to
just
copy
like
what
with
the
what's
Hunger
going on,
Games did.
yeah, exactly what's going on with like the Marvel movies now.
But
That
you
like
can't
there's
do that.
so many like Marvel movies, it's like such a saturated where eventually it's like
But
it's
why
gonna-
would it go back? I mean, I feel like
Why would it
there's
go
a next
back?
cycle.
I don't know why
Maybe
are they
there'll be
making
there's-
Child's Play again.
There's like
Because
another
they
young
cycle.
adult series somewhere down the road, but I don't like. I feel like we had this run from like for like I don't know, 15 years of all these different
Yeah.
series. And I don't know, like we were just all obsessed with that genre for a while, like starting with Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
Bringing up the.
But I think that happens with all genres. Like there was a huge
No,
time when
it
like
does.
romance comedies were
Right.
like a huge thing, and like
But
every
I'm
movie
just
that
asking,
came out,
I
and then
feel
like
Hunger Games.
now
Hunger
it's
Games
action.
is so
It's the end.
it's
it's
like
the end game.
well, it's such a great it's like a great movie series, and so many like such a wide range of ages can watch it, and it's a
Right.
fantastic adaptation. I'm just like, can you? I don't know that that's getting topped anytime soon. That's all I'm saying. I feel
Nobody
like that
else
was
has
the-
Donald
Yeah.
Sutherland and Stanley
exactly.
Tucci.
I just feel like
Yeah.
it's kind of the height,
Do you-
as far as the movie's concerned. Anyway, it's kind of the height of that genre. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the thing to beat whoever comes next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
funny
can
that
see
you mentioned Donald Sutherland. He, you know that he, like, there's the least written about the snow in the book. Like,
That's
there's not really a
true,
lot of
that's true,
information
yeah.
on snow. So Donald Sutherland went totally, like, method, and he had, like, read the books and was, like, obsessed with them because his kids were obsessed with them. So, like, wrote this letter. It's called Letters from the
Wait,
Rose
how old
Garden.
are his kids? He's like 80 years old.
I don't know.
What?
He was, maybe it was just him. Maybe I'm, like,
Looking
mixing
this
two
up, keep
stories.
talking.
But he wrote like the director letters from a story, like the letters from the Rose Garden, like this thing to like get the role, and like went through this whole like process, and that's why he
Still
got
hustling, Donald.
I didn't know
like
that
it.
he would even have to.
it. Yeah, he did, but he did, and he made a big. He completely developed that character all by himself. Like it was interesting. Like he's the one that put the importance on the roses and everything like that.
This is okay. This is cheating because it's in the second movie, and we're not supposed to talk about that. But it mentions in the book that he has a granddaughter, and putting the granddaughter into the movie is a absolutely brilliant way to show Katniss's effect in these little scenes that I would not have thought of.
Oh yeah,
Where the granddaughter has the same hair, and she goes,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
everybody's wearing it like that," and that's all you need to know as a viewer of what an effect Katniss is having. That's probably the only thing I would have thought of is like showing a crowd of Capitol people and they all sort of look like Katniss. That would have been dumb, and luckily I didn't make that movie. So I'm like, this is just like I watched that, and you take those little scenes for granted, but I'm like, that's actually really smart.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Actually, the costume designer Juliana Makovsky, she did a lot of work for Marvel as well.
Oh, really?
I looked her up.
yeah. I didn't go into that. I just thought I just was surprised because you're so obsessed with, and I think the costumes in the movie are. I mean, I definitely think they get better as time
Yeah.
goes on, but I still think that they were pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I thought they were really great. I think that, like, they stood out to me reading them more because, like, you know, when you're reading it, you're like, just imagine, especially like Katniss and Peeta's when they were on the
And all the
chariots.
fire.
Yeah.
I thought they did that so well.
I thought
in
they
the-
did good.
Yeah, with
but,
them
like,
being on
I don't
fire.
know. When I'm like, you're imagining it, you're just like, oh my gosh, like this must be.
Yeah, your imagination is always going to be better than
Right,
the
right.
reality because there's
Yeah.
only certain things you can do. I mean, even with the mutations with like the capital people, like the mutations in the book were like way more grotesque and like way more. I mean, I think the third movie, like they actually like
The
show
Tigress
like the Tigress character,
yeah.
but like Octavia, I think is that the one that has like her skin like dyed
Yeah.
green in the
Oh,
book,
yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's not showed at all like in the movie. I
Right.
don't recall her skin being like green.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, like
I don't either. But yeah, for sure, that too.
The thing that bothers me is the costumes are so well done, and then the capital city is a huge disappointment to me that does not get better in any of the subsequent movies because it's sci-fi done wrong. It's like oh, we need a future city. It's going to be clean and gray and it's going to not have any character. When this capital in the books is like colorful, candy colored. I'm imagining like Rococo style. I'm imagining
Willy Wonka's chocolate
Yeah.
factory.
Louis the 14th stuff. And just to give you like a really good example of that is actually Wakanda in the Black Panther.
Oh,
How
yeah,
it is
yeah.
futuristic, but it has so much character, so much life. There's graffiti on the walls. There's art in the like lab that the sister works in. It's an incredible piece of like world building.
Yeah.
And the capital is just every shot of like the streets just there's a gray building, we're done here. And I'm like, so frustrating.
Especially like in the last one where they do all the scenes and you see like them walking through. And you're like looking at the city and you're like,
so disappointed.
It looks very like Nazi architecture.
yeah, like it was just like brick everywhere. I'm like,
It looks
this
like East
doesn't
Germany.
really
Yeah,
work
they're
for
just
me.
trying to make it look. I don't know if they're just trying to make it look evil or I don't know.
But it has no character. There's no
and I mean, like,
direction behind it.
They're a little bit better when they do in like the actual rooms. But like
That's
even
true.
like the rooms like inside, like the pink room upstairs that they all like
The
take.
interior
That's a little
designer,
bit better,
great.
but like
I don't know who was in charge of
the architecture, but they failed.
Hire that interior designer to help.
He never showed up to any of the meetings.
It
Was
doesn't
always
make
late.
sense with like the, what everyone's wearing and their makeup. and,
Exactly.
Yeah, it didn't really coincide.
No.
Fun fact: did you know when they released this movie, there was a whole, like, they released all this makeup so you could make yourself look like the people from the Capitol, which I find kind of strange because they're like the evil people.
Yeah,
No, they do that with everyone. They do that with every show. Urban Decay will bring out like a palette. Pirates of the Caribbean. When was the last one? Game of Thrones has a palette. It's a pretty
like, for the
common
evil
thing to do.
people?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's look like a
It's
Lannister.
it's a pretty.
Well,
common
it's
thing
not
to
like
do
they're
for
gonna
the
want them to
makeup
look like the
industry.
people from the
I
scene.
know.
You can't sell that
Yeah.
with
I
like
know, it
Urban
just struck me
Decay.
as odd to like promote to sell stuff for the evil
Well,
character. I
but
don't
you
know.
also have to think like they didn't think that they were evil. Like the Capitol people didn't think they were evil.
It's not that the Capitol people
The
are
Nazis
evil.
didn't
It's
think they
it's
were
Right.
evil either.
That's true.
well, I mean, ultimately, it's not the Capitol people that are evil. It's just President Snow,
yeah.
like using them as pawns too. They were raised that way. They don't
They
understand
think
what's
that it's
wrong.
normal.
That's
Yeah.
a terrible excuse.
I can't absolve those people of all responsibility.
sympathizer.
Yeah.
I'm not a Nazi sympathizer. It's
I
not
don't
like they're
think-
going out and like slitting their throats themselves, but they are making it so it's okay.
That's like just as
I'm
bad.
not-
What are you
Yeah.
talking
Yeah, but I mean, look at how
Like
easy
that,
in the end of the movie, like, spoiler alert, in the end of the movie when like they ask everybody around the table to like flip
Yeah,
and do, you know what I'm saying? Like it
right.
was so easy for them to flip.
They were like, yeah, like let's use
Right, but
the
that
Capitol
doesn't make
kids.
what they did
Okay.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm not
Doesn't
saying
make
it
them
is,
good
but I'm just
people.
saying like
Yeah.
when
Like, they
people
just-
like they went through a horrible war and then that's what happened. Like
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it was okay, and I'm not saying that I
Sounds
agree
like
with
you're-
it.
Sounds like you're justifying it.
It's just how the
I'm
kids
not
were
justifying
like-
it. I would have definitely been more of a Katniss character, knowing me.
No way, you'd be like one of those careers. You're like working out all the time. You'd be trained, ready to go at the Hunger Games.
I am
I'm
way too
volunteering.
empathetic to like ever be like that.
to ever murder someone.
Yeah, like I would have a problem with that.
I'd be that child just hiding in the bushes. Like, don't talk to me.
You'd be Primrose.
But just sorry, like going with that theme of doing marketing for kind of the evil side of the story. There in Dubai, there's this like Hollywood theme park, and there's a whole Hunger Games theme park section in this theme
Why
park.
aren't we there?
And it's all
Let's go right now.
all themed.
There.
All the buildings in that theme park section look like that Nazi architecture. It's these big gray buildings.
That's so odd.
With like the main centerpiece being like what's the building in the middle of
The
each
Justice
district?
Building?
Not Hall of Justice. That's what's yeah, it's like the Justice Building. It's the something Justice Building, right? That's like the main. I don't know. It just strikes me as weird that that's like you would put that in a theme park. You know what I mean? I don't know.
This is fine.
This is where the kids get selected to
Yeah.
go die. Put it in the theme
Are
park.
you saying it's like the tourists going to the arenas and reenacting the fun deaths?
Yeah, exactly. Just Like, just going
They
with
should
that
just
whole
have all
theme.
74 arenas there.
But yes, there is a theme park section in Dubai just for the Hunger Games. And they were going to make an entire theme park in Atlanta exclusively for the Hunger Games, like Lionsgate, the people distributed the movie. They were like doing this whole thing. It got scrapped though. I feel like someone came to their senses.
Yeah.
Is it like the
Murdering
people?
children is wrong.
Maybe this isn't such
Let's
a
make
good
whole
theme park
that
for a
looks
kid.
like World War II.
Is it like those people who dressed up as the sexy handmaidens for
Yeah,
Halloween and it
exactly.
was like really inappropriate?
It seems like
Or dress
It's a
their
weird
kids
thing.
up as the cute chimney sweeps.
yeah, oh yeah.
Jimmy Sweeps.
Coming full circle. That was on last week's episode.
Nice. Something that they also talk about a lot in the book, but I don't think makes very good TV, is that doing the training and doing a lot of the games, most of it is survival training and finding food and finding water,
Which would make
which
sense.
it would probably be really boring to see Jennifer Lawrence be like, I'm thirsty all the time. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make for a fun montage.
Well, something that I thought was weird in that was, you see Fox Face, like she's. Like,
she's the best. She's so
I
cool.
know,
She's amazing.
She's like an expert on the like plant life and all that.
Wait, they don't say that she's an expert on
But
plant life.
in the movie, when you're watching, like she's like on the computer and she's like matching all the plants. And, like,
Oh, I
she's an
forgot
expert on
about
it.
that scene, but they don't like go into that in the book.
No,
they don't
they
mention
don't.
it at all. So
But
Yeah, then
in
why
the
doesn't
movie,
she know the
dies.
berries?
Yeah.
She dies by plants, and I was like, "This is weird."
Was it
doesn't
maybe
make
just
sense.
matching the same items as fast as
I don't
possible?
know. It just came off to me as like, oh, she's like a plant expert, and then
well, 'cause I know it was supposed to be like a puzzle. At least how that's how I explained it in the book. I'm not really sure
Yeah.
if they went into her being a plant expert, but they
Yeah.
definitely play up the fact that she's supposed to be like wickedly smart.
yeah.
And also what's interesting is that the career districts don't have any foraging skills because all they could do is like kill
Work
everyone
out.
else and gather all the like stuff
Right,
they had.
yeah.
So it was interesting in the book to see Katniss actually be better at certain things because she knew how to like get
Yeah,
squirrels
because
or
she
like
knew
get,
how to hunt. Right.
get certain things.
Makes
so
sense.
what
How did Peter learn how to do that makeup so well? Is that ever explained?
He's a
It's because he's a
pastry chef.
pastry
Yeah,
chef.
because he decorates
He's
cakes.
he decorates cake. He's an
You've
artist.
never heard of the tree bar?
Well, they play up in the movie. I mean, in the books, they play up that he's an actual artist too.
Yeah.
Like they like
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is there more in the book? On
in the
that?
books.
No.
Not in the first one.
Because
There
in
is
the movie,
in
all of a
the.
sudden you see Peter and he like
That's your
looks like
favorite part of the movie?
favorite- I, like,
When he's on the
lose it
floor.
every time.
He's like on the
I
forest
think it
floor.
looks so funny. It's like tree Peter. I was just like, wait, why? How did he get so good at doing makeup? And where did he get the makeup? I don't know.
Oh, that's just dyes from the mud.
Natural
and-
dyes,
yeah.
or is it cake frosting?
It's not cake frosting.
No, actually, the painting thing really bothered me because he suddenly, now that he's a victor, he has money to buy art supplies, and he's a great painter right away because he's an artist, which always bothers me. Everybody's good right away at what they're doing.
Yeah.
damn
Sometimes
it.
you just have to understand that some people are savants about things, honey, and you
Sometimes
can't.
it's
It doesn't take a lot of work to get that way. They're just that way.
It's just who they are.
Yeah,
As a
it's
person.
part
But
of them.
But the
Defines
book doesn't
him.
treat it like that. It's just like, he's not amazing at like,
Peter's a catch.
He's
super
good at
strong,
everything.
and he's an artist.
He's strong,
and
he's
he
an
can
artist, he's sweet.
bake
And he
bread.
bakes.
What's your problem, Kat?
husband of the year.
Husband of the year.
That is great.
You hunk.
Team
Peter.
PETA.
It's so frustrating to watch though Liam Hemsworth do like one thing after the other for Katniss, and by the end she's like, "Goodbye, see you never."
He was in the friend zone.
I know.
I like never.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you ever change your opinion on that? Just like from the books, like after reading like more of a character development
I
from him.
think it just got more. It made more sense in the book, but the movie did not handle that very well.
No, they like
we
really
all know
didn't.
he's the lesser Hemsworth. I mean, who would want to be?
They should have gotten Christy.
Dude, you need to see Isn't It Romantic?
I
'Cause
know,
he
it
is
It's so amazing.
funny in that. He is so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that in the movie they really didn't do a great character development with
For Gale.
yeah, Gale. I didn't hate him in the movie as much as
that for a guy anyway,
No,
Gale.
yeah, but in the books, like I started to hate him.
Oh,
like
yeah, for
hardcore,
sure.
like didn't like him from start. Like, and so I guess because, and that's funny because she watched the movies first,
Yeah.
and she's like, I don't get it, and I'm like, wait till you read the books.
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad that-
remember.
Gail still does a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I remember in the second one when like he got beaten and she like kissed him, and I was so mad.
Yeah.
I was like, don't kiss him just because he got beaten. Who are you?
Yeah.
I was so angry.
Well, that's her MO.
I was
That's
like-
what he says.
And like in the
Dare you,
movie,
Kat.
how dare you? Peter loves you.
Peter's amazing. He paints.
And
Brittany's
yeah.
screaming at the book.
Yeah.
Bread
much.
boy, bread boy.
Crying.
Going into full-on tantrum.
I would love
Throwing it
you,
against
Peter.
the wall.
I would never treat you like this. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I remember like thinking that. And then the movie, like honestly, in the movie, Gale just came off kind of boring to me.
Yeah,
He
it was
just
really
Yeah.
like
He's
they
got,
just
like,
did
has no
nothing.
personality.
Yeah, they didn't really develop him in any way, shape, or form. Like you don't feel as
It's
much.
like whenever he came on the screen is when I was like, okay, time to go on my phone.
It's very mono.
It was just very pathetic, kind of like you just kind of
Nothing.
was like, eh.
Yeah, I feel like they were trying to make you feel sorry for him all the time, and it's like, but I don't care. I hated him at the end.
No, I'm not kidding. Like I
Yeah.
like I hate
I didn't
it.
have that effect.
Really?
Because I can see how people would just be so angry that they want to. It's really like fine to be like, oh, I'd be above it all and want to save everyone. I know that personally, that's not me. I would be, if I saw the things that he was witnessing all the time, I couldn't, with all confidence say like,
Yeah.
oh, I would be a little Peter Angel.
Yeah, no.
It's I get his character. I get what he's
sure.
going through. Also, the tracker jacker hallucination in the movie is a really, really excellent use of flashbacks and what happened to her dad, because they show him the
Yes,
mine
that
exploding.
was-
and
Yeah,
the
that
house
was quite brilliant.
exploding.
I actually really liked that.
And I actually forgot about that scene. I was like, oh, how do they mention the dad? And then they have that scene in
Yeah.
there, and I was like, oh, that's really another great idea that I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought of.
Oh my god.
And that's a fun fact.
Oh my
that's,
God.
like, because District 12 is supposed to take place in West Virginia, and like the reason that like that is the way it is because West Virginia is known for its coal mining and for all of its mining.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, the capital's actually supposed to be in Colorado. It's like they
Oh,
put it
that's-
Oh,
like
because
near
of the
Colorado.
mountains?
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because
As
he's
you're
like
drinking out of your Colorado glass over there.
I am.
Look
I
No,
like
it
my
says,
brewery.
sorry, the glass says Colo Rad. Oh.
Oh,
they really hyphenate.
So obnoxious.
So everyone in the Capitol got way too high and started putting on all that.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
pretty much.
You think the best scene is PETA is the piece of wood?
That's the best.
I think the best scene is Stanley Tucci turning around in his chair with a big smile and like turning to the
That's
camera.
also fantastic.
Every time I'm like, oh my god, he's a god. So funny.
Doesn't he like
I
look
love
up? He's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I've written down in my notes is Kato is just a crazy killer in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a much softer
And in
appearance of him.
Yeah, in the movie at the end where he's like, I guess I'll just kill Peter because that's all I know to do is bring pride to my district and I don't have any other purpose. And just those lines about him having that existential crisis and of like, oh, I'm only groomed to be another slave for the
yeah.
capital. I have actually really appreciated that. And I kind of wish that was in the book, but...
Well, I think that the book is a little bit more raw, and
They
they
didn't
definitely
want- yeah.
made this one more.
Because he didn't realize that.
No, he didn't
No.
realize that,
No.
and a lot of them did not realize
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like that in the
For the
book,
kids.
for the kids, it was
kids.
it was appreciative, but it was
They
not.
wanted
It was not
to
how it was
come-
meant to
yeah,
be.
They wanted it to be like, oh, look, he learned his lesson, kids. Don't murder.
Yeah, don't do it.
But yeah,
am I the only one who thought it was super first time watching the movie, or even still, like when I just watched the movie last week, that like Lenny Kravitz is in the movie.
Funny fact. You know
Completely,
why?
I was like,
you want to know
and
why?
especially the first time, I'm like, is that Lenny Kravitz? Like, it's so random.
The director wanted him in it because of his performance in Precious. So they saw him in that role.
Oh God, I forgot
Yeah.
he was in that. That movie.
So he was in
is
that role, and the
tough.
way he was and the way he portrayed that character, that's how they saw Cinna
Who
being
was he
on the
in
screen.
Precious?
He was the nurse. He was the nurse. That was why.
Hmm.
Yeah, because you brought that up, so I actually looked it up to try and figure out why they
He's
would
like
choose
great
him.
in the movie.
Oh, he does a
but-
phenomenal job, but it's based on
Yeah.
one other performance that he did, and they saw it, and
That's so
they he
crazy.
didn't even have to like audition or anything. They just were like, "You're casting this because of his name."
That was
Him
easy.
and Cinna and Finnick are probably the two characters. When I ask people who's your favorite character, they will say,
Oh, every single
either
time.
one.
I like loved Cinna. He was like, I was like tears rolling down
"Oh
my
man,
cheek
when
he
he
died.
yeah."
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Finnick. So yeah, those were,
Oh,
and I think those were also exactly kind of how, like I feel like when I watched the movie, like a lot of them were not cast the way that I imagined
Yeah,
them,
not at
but
all for me.
Finnick
Oh yeah,
was
he's so
like
handsome.
exactly what I pictured. Like I was like, oh yeah,
Oh, so
that's
Yeah,
it. That's
literally,
exactly what I
like,
pictured. for
Finnick,
him.
as soon as like the character like came in the books and like I started reading it, I was like, and like just shortly after, I was like, okay, I don't care about PETA. I don't care about Dale. The only person that
matters is Finnick. Yeah, but I do like that they cast him as that role because they put, you know, in the book they don't really play on like ethnicity. They just say skin tone.
Yeah.
So like it's either olive or
That's
they
true,
don't say
brown or,
anything.
yeah.
No, they don't really. I mean, it's literally like olive or like green or like.
Well,
Yeah.
no,
You know.
Rose District, they do say
Do
it,
they-
so-
they-
yeah, they did say it. That he was-
But they like didn't say anything for him. His description was very just
Just
the
green
only thing they
eyes.
described for him was that his
His
eyes were
gold
green.
eyeliner.
The
Yeah.
gold eyeliner, and that his eyes that it brought out the
they
green
were,
in his
yeah, 'cause
eyes.
they were like sea green. That's how they kept like, oh, he's like from the ocean. Sea
Yeah.
green.
Oh, you
sea
mean
green.
Finnick?
Yeah.
No,
I was talking about Finnick.
oh,
Yeah, Finnick.
well, they do that too.
Yeah.
but
That's
it's
very-
also actually with
Cinna.
Cinna.
Yeah.
His eyes are supposed to be green as well.
Yeah.
I think the last person we have to talk about is Woody Harrelson.
I
right?
love
Woody.
I love him.
He's so great.
I love
everything.
him.
Yeah,
But he's great in everything. We just watched a movie with
The
him.
Highwayman.
Oh my god, it was
It's actually
so
pretty good.
brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, was that good?
It was
It was
so
actually good.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was like a solid 7 out of 10. Like, good. It's like a good 90 minutes.
Good
like
Woody
Yeah.
Harrelson movie. Yeah.
It's just like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's just a good movie.
Yeah, it's very
Like,
entertaining.
not every movie has to be the most amazing piece of art ever made.
Well, I mean, it's a Netflix movie. It's not going to be like.
especially for a Netflix movie.
Yeah,
it was
that's
good.
it was,
Will
and it
Smith.
was the most. It was like one of the most like realistic versions of Bonnie and Clyde that I've seen so far. Because most of them are like so like Bonnie and Clyde like they're gods, but this one was
Yeah.
like more realistic of how like devilicious
Piece
they
of
actually
crap.
were. Yeah,
Yeah.
which
yeah,
I found good.
actually, Woody Harrelson in this with his long hair, you can tell he's not used to it, but I actually really like how he uses it almost as a prop, how he's always like pulling his hair out of his
Yeah.
face or
I can't see anything.
but I think that character is really insufferable and his addiction is more explained. He's always like sleeping in his vomit in
Oh
the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
But
Yeah, they really don't. I mean, they
They definitely cleaned the character up.
clean
a
the
lot.
character up a
Yeah.
lot because
A
they
lot.
really don't go into like how bad they don't show him falling off the stage.
that's true.
You know,
yeah.
they don't. And actually, their description in the book of him is just so much different than what Woody Harrelson brought to the character. Because, like, he's supposed to have, like, curly dark hair and gray eyes because he's supposed to look like he's from the seam. And, like, Woody Harrelson has long blonde hair.
The seam is the edge of District 12, and Peter's from inside of town, which is why his life is a little bit better than
Yeah.
Katniss's.
Yeah.
I also think that they maybe should have included a little bit more of a character build-up in the movie with why Haymitch is the way he is. Like,
Yeah.
in the book, you, like, completely understand.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
in the movies, you don't. Like, you don't get, like, what he's been through. Like, you
Yeah.
don't understand why he's just, like, a raging alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like,
Self-medicating.
he's self-medicating.
Yeah.
Like, you don't
it's
see
the
that
same-
everything, like, you don't see how everybody has been murdered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was something you brought up when we were
Mhm.
talking about it the other day, was how, like, the characters and overall, like, you don't see, like, why they are the way. Like, a lot of the victors,
what
why they
happens
are,
to
like
them
what happens to
afterwards.
them, because
I
you
mean-
don't see in the movie at all, like
Yeah.
how, you know, he exploited there. I think the only scene that you even like hear anything about it is when Finnick is like telling the stories
Yeah.
of himself,
And
you know.
they went into the book very like a lot about how Katniss had her like night terrors and she
Yeah.
just was constantly screaming and she like just every night would wake up.
You see her
screaming.
broken in the book.
Yeah.
You don't really see
Yeah.
her as broken
And
in
there
the
was
movie.
like one scene where like she was like screaming and wakes up and then
I
Peter
know
comes
there's
in.
a few of them.
Yeah, but it's not. I
Not-
mean,
it's
you don't feel
it's
her
not anywhere
broken.
near
Like
as,
you
like,
just
yeah.
you don't see the brokenness. Like she's broken in the
It's
book.
like to a degree of like she was just like terrified to sleep. Like she wouldn't sleep because she was like, if I'm gonna sleep, then I'm gonna have nightmares. I'm like, I like don't want to see them. I don't want to see their faces. And like it
definitely-
was the same thing for Haymitch, and that's why he drank
Yeah.
so much, was because he didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And you don't get that like feeling from the movie of despair.
Yeah, you definitely don't get the darkness.
Yeah.
Like you even see it a little
I
bit
think
like
that's just appropriating it for the audience.
you know,
like the way
of course,
everything's
but
sanitized in
it
the-
didn't draw the depth of the characters a
Yeah.
little bit. Just because and when you
Because
read
that's
the
who
book you
Haymitch
really get it.
is. Like,
Yeah.
that's everything that he is that he just, in order to try to have a peace of mind, he just intoxicates himself 24/7 all the time. And that's his character. And you didn't see that as much at all. They definitely like
Or
brought
like
a
why
different
he had
character-
given up,
yeah.
like why he won't help them in the beginning. Like you
Yeah.
don't really understand why he won't help them in the beginning, and then you like see it. You realize, like in the book, you realize that like he's watched Victor after.
Yeah,
I mean,
like, he's tried to
watched.
help,
Yeah,
and he's,
he
like, got
first
to know
started to
them.
help and then gave up because he
Yeah.
was like, "Forget it, like
And,
everybody's gonna
like,
die."
Yeah, because it was very like, I don't want to get to know these people and then they're going to die again. It's just going to be like,
And
you
it's
know.
just one more person to add to my
Yeah.
list of deaths.
Yeah.
Who's
So-
everyone's favorite character in the
Effie.
movie?
Effie in the movie.
And the first one?
Wait, which one's Effie again?
Elizabeth Banks.
Oh yeah, because we're
that's
we're
right.
doing the first
Yeah.
one, so we can't put Finnick in there.
Oh, I guess you could do the whole franchise.
I mean, this whole franchise Finnick.
I guess.
But
That's
Uh,
not
mine's-
fair, because then I'd have to talk about
That's
like
true.
Plutarch and all these really
Yeah.
great performances. Mahershala
and
Ali.
the first one, my
Oh, yeah.
favorite's probably
Cinna. Cinna's mine.
I think in the book it was Peter though, just because of how interested I was in what was going on with him.
I feel like I used to, like the first time watching, I was, I like PETA a lot. I don't know. I'm not. He just kind of bores me now. Like when I watch it again, I'm like
That's how I feel
indifferent about
about
PETA.
You were really.
Like yeah,
Hey, we're Team
Kinda-
PETA over here. You got to stop with the
No, no,
negativity
no.
toward PETA.
it's just a little doughboy.
I think that he did such a. I mean, in the first movie, you don't see it as much, but his acting ability in like the second and the third one
Yeah.
to play like some of the scenes that he had to play, he did such a phenomenal
What
job.
went wrong for him, by the way? Jennifer Lawrence's career went like,
Well, he's
Huh.
still.
and if he
I don't-
does
I
like
don't
weird
think-
little indie
I
projects.
think it's a preference.
Yeah,
I think he
I don't
doesn't.
think
I think he
he
made
wants-
so much money off. You have to understand. He's been in it a lot longer than she
I
has.
don't
Oh,
think
yeah,
he
he's
made as
been-
much money as you think.
No, I don't think he made as
Um,
much money as she did, but
no,
like I also
but-
don't think he wants to. Like I don't. Think
You
he
have
ever
understand
wanted to
how
be part
long
of-
he's been acting. He's been
Yeah.
acting since he
He's
was
just
like
a little-
7
He
or
just
6.
wants to
Boy.
bake his bread, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Every
Paint his
every
pictures.
time I criticize somene's career, by the way, Stacy's response, no matter who the actor,
Like she knows them?
That's what they chose. That's what
That's
they
what they
want.
No, but like I really, he also
Like-
like he's never done any big movies before. I don't think that like the big franchise thing is him. Like
Well, I mean, he did the
biggest
Rock
one I feel like he
series
did.
ones, the to the center
yeah,
of the
I
earth.
feel like that was the biggest one he did. Was the
Yeah, he did both of those, and then
Zathura was a big one that I really liked.
yeah.
But like none of those are ones that are like that you just remember forever.
Wait, Brittany, who was your favorite character in the first one?
I know. I'm trying to think.
She's buying time right now.
Probably Rue.
Rue, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few. Stanley
Probably
Tucci.
Stanley Tucci,
Yeah.
but I
Can't beat
really,
that.
I honestly really like Woody Harrelson's as well.
Yeah.
To me, he's kind of like, for most movies Woody Harrelson is in, and I think this one too, he's like the rug that ties the room together.
Yeah.
Where he's like, everything is like really serious, and you always kind of have Woody
Yeah.
Harrelson. He kind of livens everything up a little bit.
That's
It
true.
like doesn't make it so stale. Not that he's like a comic relief ever.
No, he
'Cause
just
he's
has a way
not,
of like
but-
breaking.
It's just that there's a certain looseness about
And a
Woody Harrelson that
presence.
just kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's his
together.
timing, like the way he delivers his
Yeah.
lines. Like he always just like
Where everything's like I feel like if you think about the movie without Woody Harrelson, everything's kind of like almost stiff,
Boring,
like gray, stiff, and then Woody comes in, it kind of just loosens the whole thing up.
I think that's why
Actually-
they towards the end also matched up Elizabeth Banks and Woody Harrelson.
You're right.
Because
they were
those
the
two
most
actors,
colorful, fun characters.
every scene together, they're so funny, they're so
Yeah,
great.
they really play off
because
each
they're like
other.
veteran actors and they're going to
Yeah.
be way more loose in front of the camera
Than,
than these new kids on the block.
Liam, what's his name?
Liam
Hemsworth. Not Cunningham. That was the last one we did. That was the dad in The Little Princess.
I do think that the one thing that they missed in the movies a little bit that I liked that they did in the book was how she was reading his his gifts. They didn't really play that up like as much in the movie.
She didn't get as many gifts.
Yeah, and also they just didn't play up like
How they talked.
yeah, like how they communicated to each other and like
Yeah.
it didn't really develop. I feel like in the movie like they didn't
They had
show
this
the
bond.
hatred. Yeah, but like
Yeah.
they didn't show how much they hated each
Yeah.
other at first and how that developed.
Into
And
a
I feel like
bond.
that was missing in the movie a little bit, and I liked how they did it.
Yeah,
in the book.
because Peter says you guys are the same person. That's why.
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah,
are-
and I feel like you didn't grasp that until like the second one in the book, but like you see, like she's always constantly thinking that he hates her,
Yeah.
and
also
then
that
realizes
whole
that there's
dynamic of him. He's like, well, only one person can win, so I'm choosing one person to send my presents to, and how Peter felt about that, like how it sucks to like not get any like
yeah,
presents from the sky, and like,
But that was
he
just
chose
because
Katniss.
it was because
He
that was the only
genuinely-
way to
yeah.
Katniss. That was the only way to get Katniss to play along. Like
Yeah.
she needed. He already knew what to do. Peter already did it. And in the book, you get that feeling where like Peter already made the decisions that he needed to make to sell himself versus her, which it was like he said, it's like pulling, I don't even remember what the line was, but he's
Yeah,
like,
and-
it's like pulling, you can't pull anything out of her. You have to like get her to
and
understand.
Haymitch knew that
Yeah.
Peter was legit in love with her, so
Yeah.
he's like, well, he's not gonna kill her, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
sponsor
He knew
Katniss.
that
Yeah.
Katniss was the only chance at winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun little fact to end it with. So Lionsgate, who released this movie, they were this tiny little studio before this.
Were they? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
and
that.
they're still not. They're not considered a major studio. They're considered like there's a term for it. It's like a Little Giant almost, right? They're like semi-independent studio. Like they're not owned by Universal or any of this shit, but they make some fairly big movies. But their marketing department only had 27 people in it. They were like this
Oh my
tiny
God.
company. And they went completely guerrilla warfare with the marketing. So this movie comes out in 2012, which is like early days of social media advertising. Like no
Right.
one's advertising on YouTube and Facebook. They were one of the first people to use social media because social media advertising was so dirt cheap back then. And they just completely flooded social media with advertising. They did everything in-house. They even like took pictures of the actors in-house, which usually gets outsourced just because they didn't have any money to hire like a professional photography company. But just basically beat out all these other major studios releasing movies at the time just because they
Yeah,
just
and
thought
all the
outside the
kids
box
on
and
social
just,
media.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
thought
that
that
was
was really
brilliant.
interesting.
Yeah.
And they released their own. There's this whole website, I think it's still up, where they created their own like Hunger Games magazine that was like from the Capitol basically, and like had all these portrait shots of the characters and articles.
Oh, I think I saw that actually.
But just had all these outside the box ideas, which kind of laid the groundwork of how like all the other major studios then looked at that and were like, these like 27 people like beat us at our own game, and you have these people at Universal and Warner Brothers, like thousands of people in the
Yeah.
marketing department, to where it actually led to a bunch of people being fired because they were like, well, we don't need all these marketing people. Like, look
Yeah.
how this studio.
Oh,
did
no.
it. Yeah.
Wow.
That is fascinating.
Way to go, Hunger Games.
But they. I thought it was fun because I was looking through like the history of this whole young adult boom I was talking about earlier, and Lionsgate really doubled down on this because I didn't realize they did Hunger Games, and then they were like, well, that works, and then they did the Divergent series. They also tried Ender's Game, which totally flopped.
Oh God.
But someone over
That's a
there was
bad
like,
book,
"You're
too."
adult, like get at it."
Yeah.
And like now they're releasing John Wick 3 in a month, so they obviously switched gears. But
Yeah.
no, I just thought that was interesting how
Hmm.
yeah, just like 27 people, and it became like $1 billion franchise, and they were just crushing
Yeah,
the
that is
marketing
crazy.
on it. I don't know.
We
Someone
haven't
popped
talked
up.
about Jennifer Lawrence like at all.
I think that they could have put someone else in there that was a really good actor as well, and it would have been just as good. I don't think she made it, but
I don't know. I just love Jennifer Lawrence too much. I guess this is her thing.
No,
and
she was so
can't divorce
she was
her
like
from it.
polarizing. I don't know.
I
she
really
was so big during these.
she
Yeah.
was. She blew
like
up.
she was
from this.
everywhere. I don't know, I feel like-
I like her a lot. I
Yeah.
think she's got specific roles, and I think sometimes she picks the wrong ones.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, she has. She's been on a little bit of a cold streak lately.
Yeah. I think she's definitely on a cold streak right now.
Yeah, but if you look at stuff like American Hustle, where she brings like all the comedy to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
Right.
great
No, I
in
think
that.
I honestly think that she's a phenomenal actress, and I think
Yeah.
she did a phenomenal job in the thing. I love her.
Yeah, I can't like separate her from this franchise because she's just,
It's tough.
to me, she's that character. Like she owns it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like,
It's hard to see her as anything else now because that's who.
That's
Well, I think that's what a lot of
because-
that's almost why she almost
didn't
turned
want
down
to
the
do it,
role because she didn't want to be a big.
Well, it's also big commitment. If you look at like Daniel Craig and how excited he was to be
Yeah.
James Bond, it was a dream come true, and now he's like, oh my god, not another movie. Like it's like
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
yeah, and you see the actors in the Marvel movies who are just like, when will this be over?
Yeah, when
like
are you gonna kill me? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always like when you hear actors complain, I'm always just kind of like, oh, just keep it to yourself.
You just made how much money off that movie?
Nobody
Shove it up your
cares.
butt.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that's what annoyed me about the last when Jennifer Lawrence did Red Sparrow like a year or so ago. It was like this huge, just like this action movie. She's
Yeah.
like starring in it like it needs to do well, and then just at the end of her press tour, every interview I would watch with her, she's like complaining about how she's so
Yeah.
sick and tired of doing these press tours. And it's like, well, that's like part of the game. Like,
Yeah, I used to
no one
get-
wants to hear you complain.
I used to
Yeah.
be really, really obsessed with her, like during the Hunger Games times. But it was when she became Mystique and X-Men is when I was like, oh, I'm not a huge fan of her anymore, just because Mystique is one of my favorite characters,
Oh,
like ever.
no.
It wasn't how I would have done the character, which is fine. I thought she did great in the first one, like first class. I was like, yeah, I like this.
Mhm.
But as she went on, she was just like, I hate this character so much. Like, I hate playing this part. This is so ridiculous. Like, I wish that they would just write me out already. And I was like, girl, you are living my dream.
yeah, it's not a
Please
good
do
look.
not- please do not.
She,
do
like,
that.
does
Okay,
that
so
a
it was
lot,
more-
and it's-
yeah.
It's just not a. It's not a.
I mean,
I've
in
done-
That's what
general-
other people love about her is that she just kind of speaks her mind, but there's a certain limit to that with
Yeah.
me. where it's
Yeah,
okay,
I
Fun.
just-
You guys want a fun story? So when she was younger, her parents used to call her "girl on fire,"
Yeah.
and it was because after her they were like done with kids.
Yeah.
They were like literally like we're not having anymore.
Well, she's the fourth kid, right? They have a
Is
lot
she?
of kids, I think. Doesn't she have three
I thought
other
she had three
brothers?
brothers,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. But also I can't like. I think it was during this time when she had so much stuff coming up, and she was at the Oscars, and I saw her on like Letterman or something, and she was like, "I'm just so tired." And like I legit just saw somebody who was like worked to the bone, like gets up early in the morning, like goes like
Mm-hmm.
like it like yeah, she complains too much, but also I'm like, yeah, these people go through so
Yeah,
much
for
work
sure.
that we can't even imagine.
No,
And
they
like you have
absolutely do.
and constantly performing to be somebody else and somebody who's like all done up and like. And also there was that big thing where she just had so much trouble. I mean, they all do with like the paparazzi where she
Yeah.
couldn't leave her home. I
Yeah.
know that was a really big deal. And she tried to like sneak out once. She has that story about that she tells like Josh Hutcherson doing one of the video interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And he like couldn't even believe it because he didn't get the same kind of
Right,
like
attention.
people following him.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like a reporter who was like flipping her off and following her around in her car and like taking pictures of her, and he had like a date with him too, just to follow her around.
Sarah
And it was like
Johansson just had like a
really
so-
creepy.
Yeah, Sarah Johansson just had like a super creepy situation too, where she had to like she almost filed a police report because like one of these paparazzi guys. I mean, it's just all over the news. Like,
And actually, something that we don't know is people who are in political positions and these celebrities actually have less rights to do that. I learned about that in my business law
Right.
class. So they not only are they harassed constantly, especially the women, but then they actually have less legal ground to do anything
Yeah,
against
something
it.
about it, yeah.
So it's I get what you're saying though, that it's just tough to be.
There's a balance to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
I don't need to hear you complain every single press tour about
It's also like learning your own balance, like learning your own, like if you're
to
so
choose what you're
tired,
gonna do then, yeah.
stop taking so many
Yeah,
roles. You know,
you
like
need to
that's
tell
why I
your
said like you
agent.
Well, I think she did. I mean, she hasn't
Yeah.
done that much.
well, that's what I'm saying. You get to a point where you learn like, okay, maybe I need to let my popularity cool down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you get some of these people that like will like Woody Harrelson, who like specifically takes smaller, you know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't take
Right.
the big
He doesn't
roles
always
anymore
take the
because
main- yeah.
because he's more of a character actor. And like there are actors that are perfectly content just always being
But it's
that character.
also hard for her because I feel like when someone gets her, they're like, well, now we're going to turn this into a main character. That's exactly what happened in X-Men.
Yeah.
Mystique is not a main character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you almost
Yeah.
can't get her for these like side
And
roles
now, like,
anymore.
now she is-
Right, well, she has a going
like,
rate. If you're going
yeah.
to spend that much money on an actor, it's like you're not just going to use them for two
exactly.
scenes.
Yeah. Because, yeah. And that
Well,
happened
and that's
the
I
same
said. It's
thing-
also though. It's like that's the choice that they make. Like they choose to either take the smaller roles and take a little bit less.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? Or take the bigger roles and then you have the popularity that goes with it. It's a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And also, I think it was during both of the Mockingjay years that she was rated as the highest paid actress in all
Yeah.
of Hollywood. Like,
Yeah.
it's
She's
just
everywhere.
insane. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
J-Law.
We see you. We see you out there.
Feel your pain.
No, I mean, it's a lot of pressure, especially if you're the star. Because if you're the star and then the movie flops, it's like they're not just going to give you another starring role right away. Because there's people like trying to make their money back, you know?
Yeah.
So you got all that pressure of like, well, if I flop this, then all these people lose their money that like back the movie because of me. So
Yeah.
that can't be easy.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
All right. Any other Hunger Games thoughts?
Nope.
Silence. All right.
Folks, thank you so much for listening. We failed to mention earlier in our bread discussion that the country Katniss inhabits is, of course, called bread, adding to the symbolism of the different kinds of bread in the book. And as a German, I really appreciate that, because there's a war on gluten right now. Tell us what you think at modernlifepod@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time.